Okay, let's kick off this explainer by picturing something absolutely massive. I want you to visualize the sheer scale of global construction happening right at this very second. We're talking about thousands of miles of multi-lane highways being paved across Africa, massive hydroelectric dams being engineered in Asia, state-of-the-art schools opening their doors in South America, and towering hospitals being built from the ground up in Eastern Europe. Right now, workers are pouring millions of tons of concrete, kids are sitting down in brand new classrooms, and doctors are firing up modern medical equipment for the very first time. It is this immense interconnected web of progress. But when you really stop and look at all of this incredible, large-scale global development, it begs a pretty fundamental question.
So, who actually pays for all of this? You know, what's really interesting about this question is the assumption most of us automatically make. When we see a new bridge or water treatment facility going up, we naturally assume the local or national governments are footing the bill entirely on their own, right? We figure it's just local tax dollars hard at work. But the reality is far more complex, and frankly, way more fascinating. Because behind thousands of these critical infrastructure projects, there is a powerful, hidden engine. It's a quiet financial force operating completely behind the scenes to make these seemingly impossible projects a reality. Enter the World Bank. It's this incredibly powerful, yet kind of misunderstood institution that has been quietly but fundamentally financing the development of countries all over the globe for more than 80 years. Now, while it might not make the front page of the newspaper every single day, it is absolutely the silent partner in global modernization. It acts as the financial backbone for nations that are actively trying to pull themselves into the future.
Not your average bank. Let's define the institution.
Because, look, despite having the word bank literally right in its name, you can't just stroll through their front doors in Washington, D.C. and open up a checking account. You can't apply for a personal loan to buy a house. That's just not what they do. The crucial takeaway here is that the World Bank is strictly an international development institution. Its sole focus, its entire reason for existing, is to finance developing countries to help them reduce widespread poverty and spark long-term, large-scale economic growth. They aren't dealing with individual consumers. They are dealing with entire nations, funding thousands of projects meticulously designed to improve human lives on a massive global scale.
And it's really fascinating to see how their mission has evolved over the decades to meet that goal. Starting way back in 1944, the original goal was urgent and highly specific: help rebuild the countries that were utterly devastated by the rubble of World War II. But as the world recovered, the institution didn't just pack up and go home. It adapted. By the time we hit the 1980s, the mission had expanded heavily into a broader fight against global poverty. And looking at the modern era, right up to the present day, and beyond into 2026, they are financing cutting-edge critical needs. We're talking modern resilient infrastructure, vital clean water systems, and expansive renewable energy grids across Latin America, Asia, and Africa.
Moving on to part 2, where the money comes from. Let's look at the funding mechanics.
So where exactly do they get the cash for all of this? The answer is a surprisingly simple two-part engine. The first slice comes directly from its member countries. These nations contribute capital into a central pool, and by doing so, they essentially become shareholders of the World Bank. But, that capital pool is really just the foundation. To truly fund global development at this kind of scale, the institution uses its unique position to raise substantial amounts of money by issuing bonds in the international financial markets.
And who's buying up these bonds? We are talking about the absolute heavy hitters of the global economy: major pension funds, sovereign governments, and huge global financial institutions. They scoop these bonds up for one very specific reason. They're considered some of the safest, most secure investments on the planet. But what's truly unique here is the objective. Unlike a traditional Wall Street firm trying to squeeze every last drop of profit out of a deal, the World Bank's goal is to provide affordable, long-term financing. They leverage their incredibly safe reputation to gather funds globally and then channel that money directly into those vital development projects we talked about earlier.
All right, part 3. How countries borrow billions. Here is the lending pipeline.
Now, a country can't just walk up and ask for a blank check. There's a super rigorous pipeline they have to navigate. First off, the government has to submit a highly detailed project proposal. Think of it as a comprehensive blueprint explaining exactly what they want to build, why it's absolutely necessary, and how it will tangibly improve their citizens' lives. Then we hit step 2, a strict evaluation by World Bank engineers and experts. If it somehow survives that scrutiny and gets approved, we don't just see one massive wire transfer. The financing is carefully released in staged phases, paired directly with step 4, which is constant ongoing progress monitoring by on-the-ground experts to ensure the whole thing stays on track.
In that evaluation phase, that is where the rubber really meets the road. The World Bank ensures that every poured foundation or laid power line makes holistic sense. They evaluate the immediate economic impact and growth potential, like is this actually going to create jobs? But they're equally focused on environmental concerns and sustainability. Is this new infrastructure going to damage a delicate local ecosystem? They have to weigh the long-term societal benefits against the strict financial viability of the plan. It's essentially a massive, comprehensive stress test for global development.
Because once a project actually makes it through that pipeline, the concrete results on the ground are staggering. A single, well-executed loan can literally transform an entire region for generations. We're talking about connecting completely remote, isolated communities with brand new trade routes. We're talking about providing reliable electricity to millions of homes that have spent decades living in the dark. These aren't just everyday construction projects. They are foundational shifts. They completely rewrite a region's future for decades to come.
Which brings us to part 4. Global impact and criticisms, the ripple effect and reality check. It's basically a massive chain reaction where every physical project creates abstract macroeconomic results. When the World Bank funds better roads, that directly reduces transportation costs, which immediately expands global trade. When they fund reliable electricity, the lights actually stay on, which attracts new manufacturing industries and creates thousands of local jobs. Modern healthcare means a healthier, much more productive workforce, and improved education, that builds a highly skilled workforce ready for the modern economy. Every single physical investment triggers a substantial wave of economic momentum, encouraging outside investment and strengthening the entire country's financial standing.
But you know what's really interesting? Their influence goes way beyond just pouring concrete or putting up power lines. The World Bank is also an absolute intellectual powerhouse. They actively shape global decisions by publishing incredibly deep global research, critical economic forecasts, and high-level policy recommendations. Governments all around the world, even the ones who aren't actively borrowing any money, rely heavily on this data to make massive financial decisions. So their soft power and economic influence really do touch almost every corner of the global market. Now, to look at all of this impartially, we absolutely have to weigh the differing perspectives here. Because an organization this size, it's naturally going to be subject to some intense debate. On one side of the aisle, supporters firmly point to the undeniable successes. They highlight responsible investments in vital infrastructure, education, and clean energy that have tangibly lifted millions of people out of crushing poverty and created unprecedented generational opportunities. But on the flip side, critics raise highly valid concerns. They argue that issuing large, complex, billion-dollar loans can sometimes saddle developing nations with burdensome national debt that they really struggle to repay. Plus, critics point out that megaprojects, despite all those evaluations, can sometimes carry unintended, negative environmental and social consequences for local communities. It's a hugely complex balancing act of immense risk and immense reward, and the debate surrounding their global influence is a constant reality.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder. The next time you're reading the news and you hear about a sprawling new highway in Africa, a modern water purification plant in Latin America, or a massive solar farm in Asia, realize there's a very good chance the World Bank is the silent engine behind it all. They aren't just lending money, they are actively, literally building the future, one project, one country, and one generation at a time. So the next time you see that progress in action, ask yourself, how will the echoes of that single loan shape the world of tomorrow?